Battalion 2-7 to the Bronx.
2-7.
All hands, extra engine, extra truck.
10-4. All hands going to work, Bronx Box 3544, the address 3760 East 205 Street, Cater Avenue to Wester Avenue, fires on the 5th floor of a 5-story.
Welcome to Back in Quarters. I'm Dave Mellon. We're super excited to have you guys with us today for a very special episode. As you know, Fire Facilities Incorporated is one of our sponsors. And today we're joined by Aaron Adams, the president of the company. How's it going, Aaron?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to have you. One of the things that we talked about was getting you on the show and just kind of talking about that relationship between Valor Fire Training and Fire Facilities. And so I think this is going to be awesome because your background, if you don't know, for those of you that are watching, is a background in firefighting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very fortunate to have served in the fire service.
Yeah. And so I think, you know, when you and I met for the first time, I actually, full disclosure, and I've told a lot of people this, I said, man, there was this really cool guy at the booth for Fire Facilities. We really hit it off. He was a super nice guy. And we had a lot of jokes. We told a lot of inappropriate firefighter jokes. And, you know, it was kind of like super fun. And then later on, Jake Barnes was like, hey, you know, the guy that you were talking to, the president of the company. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? and he's like, yeah, Aaron, the guy that you were talking to. I'm like, the guy that I was joking around with. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, that guy was super cool. He's the president of the company. And Jake's like, yeah, man, he's the president of the company. I was like, oh no. Like, I thought I totally screwed it up with you. But no, yeah, like we totally hit it off. It was fun. We had a great time. We got to know each other. And so now it all makes sense knowing that you have the firefighter background. So tell everybody about yourself and how you kind of got started with Fire Facilities.
Well, first, let me say thank you again. It's like you were just saying, a good partnership is so important. And when you and I spoke at FDIC and met, I'd already seen you before on podcasts. And I know you're doing some video stuff in the past, and I was familiar with you already and really enjoyed it. But it's people like yourself in the fire service that drive innovation, that keep the traditions alive, that work, but aren't afraid to go back and look at the traditions that may need to change as technology advances, as training advances, as things in the environment change within the fire service. You're definitely one of the catalysts that keep things moving forward, adapting to that change, making the service continually better. And I couldn't be more thankful for people like yourself. And as you mentioned, like Jake Barnes too, you know, there's such a good group of professional trainers out there right now that have the best interests of the fire service and citizens out there in their heart and mind all the time. So thank you, Dave.
I appreciate it.
A little bit about me. So yeah, it is an odd deal sometimes where you end up in life, I suppose. But I originally got into public service as a police officer, which, you know, people make fun of me for that, I guess, a little bit. And on the north side of Chicago in a suburb called Skokie, and was involved wholeheartedly in that and enjoyed it, part of the SWAT team and tactical intervention unit stuff. And as I went down that path, I always hearkened back to when I was a kid. I wanted to be a firefighter. Part of that was I had an older brother that ended up passing away of cancer, but I became very familiar with our local fire department and the paramedics that took care of him as he was going through that journey. And it made me really appreciate good quality service and how important intelligent, hardworking people are that are public facing like that in the positions that they were in. So always really, that was where my heart was within the fire service. So I was fortunate enough to land a professional fire service job with Palatine, Illinois, and served there for just over a decade and had a spinal cord injury, so I had to retire. When I left the fire service kicking and screaming because I didn't want to go, my thought process was, well, shoot, I'm an arson investigator because I was a cop. I'll just go and get a job with an insurance company being an arson investigator. And lo and behold, a friend of a friend called me up, said, hey, we've got a new company starting off in the construction industry. It might be something that's set up for your skill set with regards to your science dork, which I am and continue to be. And I had some experience in the building industry and as a carpenter, and that's part of where my family came from. And I took a look at the company, and I'm like, this is a really unique opportunity. I think I can always go back to my comfort zone of the arson investigation stuff and still be related to the fire service. So I jumped in with both feet with that, had some success from a business side of things, ended up becoming a partner in the company, and then we sold it in 2019. And I continued working for the company we sold to rather. And and a headhunter came along and said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody that's got police fire experience and manufacturing experience, and there aren't that many people out there in the world." So I think because I was like the one of those everybody that wants this position step forward type thing, and there was it was basically me. So I was very lucky that the fire service had an opportunity for me to join on with them as a 30-year-old company that's been in the industry and really doing a great job for 3 decades. And it's a great thing to be a part of, and I feel fortunate to work with the people that I do, and seeing our engineers, our salespeople, everybody comes to work every day with the idea that we need to put the best product out there for the hardest working people in the world, with regards to the fire service and police service tactical side of things. So that's how I ended up here, I guess, on kind of a really quick rendition.
Yeah. No, it was great. And so first off, I'm sorry about the loss of your brother. I'm really sorry about that. And to have that input from the fire service, seeing them come to your house, and I've had family members who we've had to call 911 for, and they've come and taken them in the ambulance. And I was already interested in the fire service, but it made me appreciate it even more, seeing it in real life. And so I think I speak for the fire service when I say thank you for not going into work with the insurance companies. I think you're much better suited where you are. I think that would have been a missed mark if you would have ended up there. Not that you would have done a bad job. I'm sure you would have been great, but we're much happier having you with us. And then the one thing that really kind of stuck out to me is, the side that we don't think about with towers, and specifically with fire facilities, is that you're not just doing stuff for the fire service, you're also doing tactical facilities for law enforcement. And so I know when you and I were talking a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about doing the podcast, you're like, "Oh, I'm going to be at SHOT Show." And I'm like, "Man, this guy's everywhere." And I'm like, "Wait, SHOT Show's all guns and stuff." And then it hit me. I was like, "Oh, they do stuff for tactical facilities as well." So it is really cool that you guys are diversified, not just with fire and emergency services, but then law enforcement and military as well.
Well, even talking about the industry and how the industry has truly evolved to where it's absolutely more of a partnership between law enforcement and the fire service and medic service out there all the time. And we're seeing a lot more training facilities that are actually built, and we're building them with that purpose in mind, to have integrated training, whether it be on a meth lab, that they're having to go raid and then have to deal with the mitigation of all the problems that come with that, or whether it's even just responding to a basic medical call or a barricade situation, which, these are all very common everyday occurrences out there that most of the citizenry that walks around in public don't even know is going on in their backyard a lot of times. So it's nice to be able to be innovative and respond to the needs of the professional public services or volunteer services, and be able to give them an environment that they can actually prepare for the rigors that they see every single day.
Oh, absolutely. And a little bit later, when we dive into it about the towers, I'm going to bring up something about CS gas, and I want to get your opinion, because we recently, the Valor Fire Training instructors here recently did a little bit of testing in a tower, and it was very interesting what we came up with. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But the one thing that I really like about your guys' towers, fire facilities, is that we've been able to be in them several times. We were in one in Florida. We are going to be in one here coming up in Kearney, Nebraska, which I believe theirs is coming up on almost 20 years old.
Yeah.
It's been around for a while, and it is phenomenal the way that you guys have yours set up. So kind of talk about your fire facilities buildings and what sets you guys apart from your competitors, because I know from my side, I know what I've seen, but I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. What are some of the things that you guys have done innovation wise and technology wise that kind of sets you guys apart?
Boy, I hope I can hit all the points because there's a lot of them. I think first and foremost, it starts with this company was born out of people that have served in the fire service, and I think that's extremely important. Myself, I was in the fire service. All three of our field representatives are all in the fire service, medic service, and the even in our engineering department, we have members there that have been firefighters. So really, from the every aspect of what we do and get out there to our customers come from people that have hands-on experience with regards to what the training is, what the work environment is, and what the expectations are of firefighters. I mean, to be honest with you, the three steel ball theory always is in the back of my head. Where how do you know if you have a firefighter? Well, the test would be you lock them in a round room with no doors and windows. You give them three steel balls, and if in an hour they have eaten one, lost one, and broken one, then you know that they're qualified for the position.
Yep, 100%, 100%.
Obviously, it's a joke, but there nothing gets put through the test like what firefighters have to deal with on a regular basis. Things are pried on, working in hot, cold environments. It's just a physical world out there for what the fire service does. So coming into it with professionals that have done that, it's always helpful. But so the company was born out of that 30 years ago, continues to be that way today. And one of the big things that separates us is that we aren't afraid to innovate. We don't rest on our laurels of, well, this is always work type thing. Is there something better? We're always asking ourselves that. And from that kind of thinking and innovation or thought of innovation, we have developed a burn room liner that's unique to us, that's patented, that nobody else has. It's called WestTech. It's a stainless steel liner system that has a ceramic blanket behind it, which allows us to give a 15-year warranty, non-prorated warranty. The next closest in the industry is a 1-year warranty, from a burn room, which again, those are the things that really take the beating. So developing things like that is enormous, and it really sets us apart from a lot of the other competitors out there. One of the biggest, most traditional training facilities out there are the concrete masonry structures. I think everybody's familiar with those. They certainly do the job of training, and they give people a nice training environment, but there are some hurdles to get over. One, there's an expense side to it that's more so than there would be from a steel building like ours, or some other options out there like containers. The design of them is pretty static. It gets hard to adjust or move or adapt to changing environments within your own community. And the maintenance on them is a lot more rigorous. So they're like any building that is subject to like the Life Safety 101 code, building code, they're meant to withstand a fire maybe twice in their life,
Right.
and a containment fire, hopefully. Obviously we know buildings fail when they're exposed to fire. And a concrete masonry structure is no different than that. There's still steel in the floors, and there can be support beams, and all that stuff expands as it heats up, and it pushes the static masonry and it causes issues. There can be other issues that come along with it, but that is one of the biggest separation points for us, is one of cost, to the customization side of things, whether it's day one or whether it's 30 years down the road, being able to add and change and move and adapt your structure to what you need. And then in addition to that, it's the overall versatility of being able to really treat that building brutally with regards to training, banging stuff into it. If you knock the tower ladder into it and you crack the building on a masonry, that really causes some long-term issues, versus you dent a panel. It can be replaced. Aesthetically, it still looks great, but more importantly, the building's functional. So from us, because of all the innovations through the years, not only did we start with good sound fitting with good quality engineered designs, the buildings that went into service more than 30 years ago are still in service today, being used for training. which I think is a huge testament to the quality that comes out of the factory up in Wisconsin with regards to our buildings.
Yeah, and the Carney one, I want to talk about that one specifically because we've had quite a bit of time in it. And when we went up there, for those of you that don't know where Kearney, Nebraska is, it's basically smack dab in the middle of the state. You drive out of Lincoln and you drive about an hour and a half, and there's fields and cows. And then all of a sudden you show up to this town of like 75,000 people. And there's a university there. It's an all volunteer fire department with full-time drivers. And so they have 3 full-time drivers on duty every day. They have over approximately 100 volunteers, and they run a lot of fire. They don't run EMS unless it's like a cardiac arrest or something like that where they can the ambulance isn't available. But they're a busy volunteer department, and so their training facility is essentially like 4 city square blocks, and it actually has streets that are named, and they have several towers. One is yours, and the other ones they've built themselves with shipping containers, and they're all 1 story. But your guys is the one that is the multi-story, and it was phenomenal to find out how old that tower was because it looks like it's 5 years old. I mean,
awesome.
It's super cool because I was like, man, there is not a lick of rust on this thing. It doesn't look wore out. The metal on the inside, the galvanized stuff, when you're walking up the stairwell, it's all pristine. Now, some of that is probably because they've taken care of it, right?
Sure.
But even the burn room, when we've done live fire stuff there, the one thing that stood out to me at the very beginning was some of the other towers from some of the other companies that we've been in, they don't want us flowing smooth bores. Or if we're flowing a fog nozzle on straight stream patterns, they only want it at like 65 gallons a minute because they don't want to break any tiles or break any panels.
Right.
When I was talking to the training cadre from Kearney, they're like, oh, no, man, you can do whatever you want with those things. Just go into the burn room and spray water wherever you want. And I said, well, aren't we going to break stuff if we hit it too hard? They're like, no, come in here and let's show it to you. And we walked in the room and I looked around. I go, okay, this is cool. This is really good. So, because it doesn't matter where you burn in that room, you're still getting the same convection, the same rollover. It's just going to be in a different spot. Whereas with some of those tiled rooms, they only want you burning in this corner, or they build this area specifically for the main burn, and then you're going to get the same fire over and over again. So I thought that was really cool. And then the other thing that I noticed about your guys' towers are that I've seen some that look similar, but I've never seen 2 that look identical.
Yeah.
So I mean, like you guys have the captain or the lieutenant or the different types, but even within those subsections, like Kearney's, for example, they have a ledge or an output that like under a window, so it's almost like a escape area, but it's above the burn room, so you can't access it with ground ladders. You actually have to ladder the burn room, get up on the roof, then take another ladder and get to this alcove, and then you can rescue the person off the balcony. And I'm like, man, that is cool. I've never seen that on that type of tower before. So what kind of customization stuff did you guys figure out early on that like, hey, this is something that is needed in the fire service? How did that come up?
Well, let me circle back really quick, if you don't mind. You mentioned something that I think is a pretty cool point when you're talking about the way you want to train with a smooth bore nozzle, for example.
Right.
I came from a department, and my familiarity within the fire service was training on exclusive calcium silicate burn room liners, which is typically they're white or pink. Everybody that's trained in live fire situations knows what they are. We still use that stuff on shutters and doors because it's the best solution for that right now. But one of the big drawbacks is there's definitely a limited life expectancy of those tiles, and they're getting more and more expensive. So I think right now a panel that's like a 4x4 panel, it's like $400. They get it, and you got to build that into your ongoing maintenance budget, which I've found in the fire service. Firefighters want to train, and if things aren't working, they're going to find a way to train. They'll do workarounds. They're not going to stop training. But there's nothing worse to me than seeing that somebody has a facility that isn't capable of dealing with NFPA 1403 live fire training because they didn't budget for replacement panels, or they didn't expect to have that in the budget, or they didn't expect them to crack like they have.
Right.
So we've taken that out of the mix, and that is very, very important when it comes to keeping your facility up and running so that you guys can run evolutions through it whenever you want to. And that came out of exactly that, is that how do you keep a building in service? Is there a better option? How do you innovate? And one of our engineers that's still with us, he's been with us 27 years. I consider him, in this industry, probably one of the foremost experts on training facilities. And he's a stamping engineer in like 47 or 46 of our 50 states. And he came up with this patented system just based on the experience of seeing failure over and over again of burn room liner systems. And lo and behold, developed our West Tech system, which is that stainless steel. You have a panel that has abrasion resistance. It has the ability to be bumped into, and dynamic impact load resistance, whether it's smooth bore or whether it's your bottle that you're spinning while you're doing a right-handed search, right? And again, firefighters are bulls in china cabinets, man. They're there to get the job done. They're taking their Halligan tool with them, dragging it on the ground. And even if they're super aggressive and that Halligan tip pierces a stainless steel panel to replace is minimal cost, minimal time, minimal effort. It can be done and you're back up and running in service, no problem. You do that and you break the boards, the calcium silicate boards, and your burn room's out of service for a while. Right. So that innovation of understanding, if in the construction industry and in the engineering industry, things that have high heat resistance and high heat transfer resistance. And the companies out there have developed, the ceramic wool type. They're not wool, obviously, but ceramic insulation. And the heat resistance and the non-burn capability is just astronomical. So in our, NFPA 1403 says you shouldn't do live fire training at, more than really 700 degrees. You're not going to stick your head up in that anyway. You shouldn't spike more than 1,000. Your gear's not designed to deal with that anyway. The rooms that we have are tested up to 1,850 Celsius, or warranted up to 1,850 Celsius. We go well over 2,000 degrees when we test them. So we should be well within the range of even the cowboyest cowboy out there that really wants to wants to go out there and death and
this guy right here.
Let's light the world on fire. What's the backdraft guy?
Yeah, Ronald. What do you want to do, Ronald? I want to burn it. I want to burn it all.
Yes, absolutely. So again, we build them to withstand the rigors of the training that has to be done in order to be prepared to do your job. And it really came out of that. And through a lot of testing, a lot of innovation, understanding it's not as easy as just sticking up a steel panel and, crossing your fingers. A lot of effort in design, trial and error, and again, applying those innovative techniques to getting something to work has brought that to the market. And it's been around now, I think for 15 years, and it's really done a great job. And we've got specific joints that we've created that deal with that expansion and contraction of things. And it's really changed the game with regards to the longevity, low cost maintenance of these buildings and burn rooms. And then again, the most important part, keeping things up and running and in service so your crews can train when they want to, how they want to, where they want to, in their building.
Yeah. Well, and I got to be honest with you. I mean, every once in a while I throw myself under the bus, and everybody that knows me knows I do that. But I've been in burn rooms at facilities that I don't own, and we've lost the panels, right? Yeah. And everybody kind of looks at each other, and we're like, so does anybody have any extra panels? They're like, no. I'm like, do we want to stop the training? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, let's just kind of keep it under wraps. Like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
So again, I love the option of being able to do something different, because we know that we're bulls in a china shop, just like you guys do. And even the smaller little things. And I want to get back to the customization stuff too. I want to bring this up before I forget. Right.
Yeah.
So the even when you walk in, right? Like I've been in burn towers where you walk in and the light switches are in the absolute worst place. Like I can't find those things to save my life. And as an instructor, there's times where I need to kick the lights on to check on a student, or we're doing like an all clear at the end of the scenario. The little subtle things like actually having light switches where they would be in a real structure, that's what we've seen with your guys' facilities. And it blows my mind every time, because I walk in and I immediately put my hand to the left and I'm like, oh, hey, there's a light switch. Yep, that's where it would be. Instead of the rocker switch over on the far wall behind like 5 different panels that I can't get to.
Sure.
So it's very cool. But yeah, talk about the customization stuff. I want to hear about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the cool part about the steel structures, that you can do it with masonry too, and obviously container systems are utilized quite a bit, but there's some limitations with regards to your size is the size of what, the containers are pretty standardized. Even if you're pulling getting grinders and cutting walls out and trying to weld them together and whatnot, you're still limited on ceiling height and the width of the containers and whatnot. With our buildings, you tell us what you need. We have 17 base models, and I don't know if any of them ever hit the field as a base model where it's got as it's drawn in the brochure. So every department has unique needs, whether it's an 8-story training facility or a 1-story training facility, whether it has to be mobile. We have to accommodate every range of budget that's out there. We have to accommodate the uniqueness of rural, vast areas that need to still train firefighters like everybody else in an urban area. And we have to come up with innovative solutions like a mobile burn room. Literally, we literally put a burn room on a trailer, and you can drag it all over the state or the region and make sure you're getting your firefighters some live fire training. So even from that end of things, it's customized. But we see people that have single family home situations where that's the kind of environment they want to train in all the time. And then they say, you know what, but we have some growth that we're expecting. So why don't we budget for the single family home right now? And I think we might want to expand this to a 3-story unit eventually. Is that possible? And the short answer is yes. If you know that that's coming, we can plan a foundation to deal with that, and we can add on at a later date, whether the budget is restricted or whether it's just not needed at the time. We can adapt to it or you guys can adapt to it when you need it, essentially. We definitely see super unique environments. We're currently working on a tower right now that is, I think it's 8 stories high in a seismic area that is probably 50% higher than the max in California that you see. And they want 190 mile an hour straight line wind load at that height. To do that with a masonry building is very, very difficult. And do that with any building is very, very difficult. A Category 5 hurricane is 175 mile an hour winds, so that is one of the challenges that we see on a regular basis, that we, somebody says, hey, here's our environment. Can you build something? Because this is where we live. So we need it to hold up to this stuff. And the answer is yes. We've got a building that is designed to deal, that is 8 stories high, can hit the seismic load requirements and hit that straight line 190 mile an hour wind load, which is insane, right?
Yeah, that is insane. Like
yeah.
I was off camera while you were saying that, and I'm like,
yeah, no, it's
that is
crazy.
nuts.
Yeah. It's absolutely crazy. And we're doing it without like any crazy cabling or anything like that, where you're anchoring, exterior of the building. We're doing it just like you're going to build a high rise. It might as well be the Sears Tower, right? Or Willis Tower. We can do it, So the other cool part is we get fire service companies all the time that say, we'd love to have a vast open space because we get factory issues all the time here. But do we have to build 2 facilities in order to accommodate a factory situation or a large open expanse like a gymnasium, a school? We did the alert facility, which is the advanced law enforcement rapid response training, which specializes in mass casualty incidents like at schools.
Yeah, I just went through their training.
Yeah, so we did their facility, and it's got a mix of everything that you'd find in a school, like a high school or a grade school. which is a unique thing that, again, from a customization standpoint, we can do it. So when it comes to like a vast open space, we can build that in because of the way our buildings have a skeletal system with red iron superstructure, and we can span mass amounts of space inside. And then we can do something even cooler where we've got these movable partition walls that can even have doors in them that go floor to ceiling. So now you want to change it up and go back to the residential size rooms or apartment size rooms, and that's no problem either. Or even build a Denver drill into it from a massive open space, make a tight hallway with a ridiculous window ledge, that no normal human being should ever be able to fit in anyway type deal. And you can practice Denver drill. But that's the reality of it. So not only can we customize the buildings the day they come out of the factory, we can customize them after they're on site, whether it be 6 months or 30 years. And we can provide options that allow you to customize your training to your needs with the movable partition walls as well, which is, again, that's all innovation that's born out of the needs of the fire service, observing, communicating, being from it, and adapting to what the market needs, to make sure everybody's getting the training they deserve.
Sure. Well, and what was really cool is, we did the hot seat episode at the fire facilities booth at FDIC. And when I was talking to some of the other people that were there in your booth from the company, I wanted to learn more about it. And so I started asking a lot of questions. And whenever somebody tells me that you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That is a really, really, really fine line. Like, if you tell me I can do whatever I want, you better mean I can do whatever I want, because I will come up with the craziest stuff. And so I actually started asking, like, I thought about it. And then after we did the show, once my mouth stopped burning and my stomach wasn't roaring, I came back and I said, hey, so I got an idea. And I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he was really, really cool. But I said, hey, I got a question. So I want to build a training tower, and I want it to be basically 4 quadrants. So it's all going to be 1 story, but it's going to be a warehouse, an office building, a school, and a single story house. And then I want to add on like a stairwell that goes up, and it goes to a second story that's on the other side, which is going to be like a 2-story duplex. And so like I kind of drew it out, and I was like telling him what I wanted and like how, I want to be able to do it. And I said, full disclosure, I'm not really building this because I'm broke. But if I wasn't and I had somebody else's money, I would totally do it. And he was like, no. So let me take a look at it. And he looked at it. He goes, yeah, we could do that. I go, you're serious? He goes, yeah. Oh, yeah. He said, actually, as you're telling me these things and as you're showing me the picture, I'm thinking of things that we've done with other towers that we could incorporate into this one. And I was like, okay, you really can do anything. This is cool. I like this. Because I've been told that by other people, other manufacturers, other vendors. And then once you get into the nitty gritty, the engineers start going, well, we can't do this. And I understand that there's probably a limit somewhere, but I haven't found that with you guys. Like, I've tried several times.
We're very fortunate to have super talented engineers that I have seen them from time to time. They come in, a proposal comes in, and from time to time they do say, man, how come we just can't sell one just regular building that we spent all this time designing? That is awesome. They're the 17 models and
Yes.
they're awesome models, and,
Yes.
and every time someone's like, okay, this is 90% there, or,
Oh, yeah.
or can we combine that one and this one? And, and can we make one side of the roof, like a 412 walkable, and then the other side, like an 812 unwalkable? Can we do? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes is the answer. Yes, we can do that. Yeah. And
Dude,
it's super cool. And it's so cool to be able to respond, with that answer, because we have the talent in-house that helps us achieve all that, without a doubt.
Yeah. So I want to ask you this question. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, right? Just because we're friends, so I can do this, right?
Well, we're friends right now. Let's see what the question is.
So, when I grew up in the fire service, and I've talked about this on some other shows as well. When I grew up in the fire service, we were using a concrete brick and mortar type building.
Yeah.
And so we had, granted, we weren't supposed to be burning couches and chairs and mattresses and things like that. But this is like the late 90s. You could still get away with that.
Yep.
So we had real fire in real buildings. And I remember the spalding of the concrete down the hall. I mean, you could definitely see where the fires had burned. But we had a very realistic expectation of what we were getting into as far as the fire service in general. I knew when too hot was too hot. I knew when I needed to open up the nozzle. And more importantly, or probably most importantly, I knew when it was time to call it quits and back down the stairwell, or I knew what, to say, hey, this is nuts. We need to back up a little bit, or we need more water, whatever it is. So what I'm finding now, and this is a big hot topic in the fire service, is that we have a lot of training environments that are unrealistic. And so I want to kind of get your take on where you think we kind of went a different direction in the fire service training realm. And I've said this before, NFPA 1403 has to be there. We have lost brothers and sisters because they've done stupid stuff, and brothers and sisters have died. But I want to hear it from the fire training tower mindset of how do you balance safety and longevity with realism?
Yeah, that's a great question, and yeah, one I didn't prepare for, so it's going to be kind of off the cuff with it.
It's going to be raw, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, we respond to sitting down with a department and discussing what their needs are, and then working in collaboration with them on what kind of environment are you working in, what are you showing up to, and then you definitely have some basic regulations that you have to adhere to when it comes to building any structure. Our structures are not built to life safety code because you're setting fires in them thousands and thousands of times, and you're training in them. So they're not required to be built to life safety code like with plumbing and electrical. Some of them are electrical, and that's all done to code and everything else. But when it comes to being able to shed water, because you're going to be flowing thousands of gallons of water through these buildings, it's a regular building is not built to or designed to shed water from the interior like our buildings are. So there's some uniqueness out there, which is another reason why we're going to actually start being proactive with regards to training architects on structures like ours, because fortunately, in the design phase or in the design of the fire training structures, oftentimes they're not designed by fire professionals. Very rarely are they designed by fire professionals, unless you're using a company like ours or a couple of the competitors that are out there. Typically, if you go to a regular architecture firm, which is who is excellent at building your fire station, they're phenomenal at it, or building a school or a hospital, they're experts. But when it comes to building a training facility that's going to withstand the rigors and make it a realistic environment to be utilized over and over and over again, they're not all that great at it. So it's good if we can consult with them to discuss some of the uniqueness that a regular old building doesn't, whether it's commercial or residential, doesn't see. So one of the things I have noticed out there is when a building is designed by non-consultation with the professional firefighter service, you get some pretty unique challenges that arise from that, and it can cause some challenges with regards to training. How we try and adapt to the needs of the fire service and keep it realistic is, if there's something that flies in the face of realism from a building code standpoint, we can get exceptions to that because we see that there's a need for it. And let me give you a very basic example of that. There are requirements in the International Building Code, which is what has been adopted by NFPA 1402. Our buildings are all 100% NFPA 1402 compliant. But they went from OSHA stairs to IBC stairs, the International Building Code stairs, a couple of years ago, and it changes the layout of the stairs a bit. However, if you need to train on a different type of stair, or you need an OSHA type stair because you're going to run into that sort of thing, we can get exceptions to that, and we can still install those in buildings. So there's always a means to give you the reality or adapt to the uniqueness that you're seeing out there. in the fire service or in your community. And that's how we go about it. We'll get the exceptions, we'll call them out, and then we'll go to the building officials and say, this is the reality for this department. Now we're going to build this to meet all of the code requirements that are there. But in reality, there are sections that they're going to have to train in that wouldn't be what a standard building code is going to be today, and so we'll address that on the front side with whoever's going to go out and give a building permit.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that I will speak from experience on, and I'm glad that you answered it the way that you did, because I had like 3 or 4 things in my head that I was like, okay, if he doesn't bring this up, I'm going to say this as well. Even something as simple as in a burn room, there are some that have, the barricade. So you have like a little tucked corner that you can burn in, so it shields it a little bit, so you're not putting it out as fast. But I was really, really impressed with your guys' towers with the headers. And I know that seems like, of all the things in this amazing tower, it's the header and the door that is like just blowing my mind. But it's, I've seen so many towers where the interior doors are almost floor to ceiling. And the one cool thing about yours that I noticed was that they're true size doors. And there's an actual header. And what that means for us is if I'm going down a hallway and I have fire coming down the hallway from the burn room, just kind of licking out, that gives me that barrier that when I open up my nozzle and I'm hitting, if I don't have it properly placed into that doorway, it's not going in there. Whereas sometimes you get that falsehood where you believe that you have more room to flow that water through that doorway than you really do. And so that, to me, as I was watching students go in there and they're hitting it, I would say probably 40% of the water that they were flowing was hitting the wall and bouncing back at them, including the header. And so they really had to fine tune it. And, everybody wants to do this with their nozzle when they really should just be doing this.
Surely.
And so it kind of, got them in the habit of fine tuning and learning, okay, if I'm coming in from this angle, I can bank it off the ceiling, but I have to get underneath that header. And from a fire behavior standpoint, I was just tickled pink with that. So again, that's one of those innovative things that I haven't seen in every tower that I've been in.
Well, that's, and to your point, the cool part about a tower that has multiple burn rooms, we build towers all the time with multiple burn rooms. The burn rooms are not cookie cutter, man. They're not set up the same way every time. And we suggest that they're not, there's different nuances to them. One of them may have a closet, one of them may have a header in the middle of the room. Because it's, or maybe it's a cutout for a French door system that you see in every McMansion that's out there, right?
Yes.
It's not just this vast open space that's got a burn pile, that you're dealing with. So, yeah, that again is kudos to the fire service for communicating with us and then having some experience on our side that says, hey, there's some unique things that you have to deal with. Not every burn room situation is the same, So that's a point that you bring up.
Absolutely. Well, and I said I was going to bring this up later, so this is that time. So, I went through the TAC medic training a couple years ago, and when I did, probably, I would say arguably the worst part was the CS gas. And when I went in and we did it, now, granted, it was a Connex box, and they popped a CS grenade in the box. And so this thing's like spewing out of the box, like it's drifting across the field.
Yeah.
We're standing there and I'm like hacking and coughing. I got snot coming out of my nose before I even went in. Then I had to go inside with my mask, with my gas mask on, and they made me remove the gas mask. I had to give my name, my address, my phone number, my date of birth, and then I had to put a tourniquet on my buddy, and I had to wait for him to put a tourniquet on me. I made it to my date of birth, and that was it. Like, I couldn't breathe. I was hacking. This was horrible. And then I had to put my mask back on, purge it. So what came out of that is that I was talking to some of the Valor fire training cadre, and I said, right, wrong, or indifferent, and this is many, many moons ago. When I learned how to wear an SCBA, it was they had a burn barrel with straw, and our instructor made us take our masks off. And you got that burning in the eyes, you got the snot coming out of your nose. I mean, it was rancid, and again, it wasn't any worse than a campfire, but it sucked, and I hated it. And I knew that there was nothing in the world that would make me want to take my mask off. And so anyway, so I told the guys, I said, hey, what do you think about doing like a SCBA confidence with CS gas? And they're like, dude, you're nuts. There's no way. And I said, I'm just, I mean, you could learn to be confident with your SCBA because it's positive pressure. Yeah, you're going to have some leaks, but people freak out because they don't understand that that's going to protect you. The positive pressure is there for a reason. And so actually we were at a fire facilities tower. I won't name which one because we didn't have permission to do this, but a friend of ours who was on the fire department was a local law enforcement guy
That's
too.
how
And
you should have started it. You should have said, so a friend of mine told me they were at this tower.
Yeah. No, I always own up to my own stuff. But after we got done with class, we said, okay, we're going to try this. And so we did. We popped smoke in one of the burn rooms. We went in there and the SCBA worked fine. We disconnected the regulator, pulled it out, took a breath, hat, cough. Oh my God, this sucks. Put the mask back or the regulator back in, purged it. And then you're able to breathe. And aside from the skin irritation, because that's going to happen, it gave us almost the same version of what I had experienced 20 some years ago that I never wanted to take my mask off. And so again, it's one of those things where, I know that it's not typically part of your fire facilities, manual, like, hey, here's how to use CS gas in a fire training scenario. But again, we're looking for different ways to get the point across to students because I can't ethically make them take their mask off when we're burning Class A, right? And so this is another means that we can do it. And so again, moving forward, finding out that you guys actually do use these facilities for law enforcement, military, stuff like that. It was great. And aside from having to air out our bunker gear because you get that peppery smell for like a week.
Oh yeah.
It was cool, man. And so, I can't say we're going to do it again. I wanted to be able to prove my point and it worked. But that you may be seeing that at some point. So have you ever had, I know you guys do the law enforcement stuff. Have you guys ever gotten to go do that?
So I did that training at Quantico, Virginia, when I joined the Marine Corps. We had to do that sort of thing. And then as a cop, we were exposed to the pepper spray side of things and all that good stuff, and tasing, just for fun.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's so much fun, Aaron. It's so much fun. Yeah, getting tased is just a blast.
Which makes me laugh because I was when I was at SHOT Show, we brought that up. I was there in my booth. And the shows are shows, right? You have some really good, engaging conversations, and then there's times where you're like, So, in the times, I was across from a booth that had these electrified gloves that were like tasers, and people were walking up in the booth, signing their waiver, and standing on the wrestling mat and going through the demonstration of how this affects your body, and they never lacked volunteers, which you already know that people in public service are a little off.
Yeah, we're a little crazy.
Off anyway, right? Because you're signing up to potentially, you're working in an environment that can kill you on a regular basis. But I was wholly entertained by watching this demonstration, and the way, to the point that people come up with unique ways to utilize training and do different things, is phenomenal to me, and I love it. So if you're coming up with good ways to use the training facilities, yeah, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So just as a general overview, and I know, we went down a bunch of different rabbit holes and stuff like that, but just as a general overview, so we'll stick with just the fire side. So you guys do burn rooms. You guys do lighting and electrical, plumbing, if it's necessary. You guys do rappelling, so you can do anchor points. You guys do different types of pitches with ventilation, so you can actually ventilate the structure. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys also do confined space within the building. You can actually put in tubes and restrict it to where it's a tunnel system. Is that right?
Yep. Elevator shafts, tunnel systems, you name it. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, as sadistic as your brain can be, we can make that happen, sort of thing.
Very cool. And that's just like the 10,000 foot view of the things that you commonly see on check boxes for a training facility. Now, the one thing that I wanted to also ask is, I know that there was a lot of discussion with the AFG program, and it was, to my knowledge, that if you wanted to put in for AFG for a fire facility, it had to be mobile. So is that still a thing?
Yes. So I have to go and read this year's AFG because it does change from year to year. Sometimes the language changes, sometimes the interpretation of it changes. And I'm writing something down because you just spurred my brain, and I don't want to forget it. To mention it it's along these lines. So the AFGs still do say that they require mobile. The part that I always try and wrap my head around with that is technically people consider like a container system that stacks 6 stories high a mobile unit.
Yep.
And which doesn't seem to be in the spirit of what the mobile thing means. So we do build units that are either one towable, 100% mobile, basically slap it to a tractor, a truck, and tow it wherever you want it, or units that can be picked up with forklifts and moved around or put on a flatbed and transported somewhere. That's ultimately very, very mobile. The adaptation to the language in the AFG grant has been interesting over the years, and we've had buildings that have been considered props, which is what the language is, that it's a fixed facility prop, and it has been awarded money, and then we've had it not awarded money. So it seems to be a little bit of a moving target. I've even gone the length of contacting the AFG people, and I would say they were less than helpful with regards to what their intent is, which is really unfortunate, because we want to be educated on what the intent of the language is so that we can be a resource for fire departments that are really in need of, 1, funds, and 2, training facilities, right? And it's our business. So we want to make sure.
Yeah, it's what you do.
Yeah. And we want to comply. We want to make sure we're doing what we can do to get things out there. But there are other grants that come up. There are services out there that are grant services that'll do research for you and find all sorts of money, a lot of times in private business, that'll fund your tower for you. There's a new grant from the federal government as part of the infrastructure bill called Build America by American. And because we're 100% American steel, we can be adaptable for that, or we can comply with what the needs are for that. It says that it's got to be something that benefits your community. Firefighter training, it benefits the community. It's pretty easy. Part of an educational system, that's all typically pretty easy. A lot of these things are even on college campuses, for that matter.
Yeah.
Or part of academies. That's pretty simple. And then again, because we're an American company that uses American steel, that's one of the requirements, and that's us. Literally, we do it every single day.
That's fantastic.
So knowing stuff like that, and again, utilizing us as a resource, our hope is that whether it's us or whether it's another quality competitor that's out there in the market, but regardless, when it comes time to build a facility, getting people to reach out to people that do it every day, like us or other experts in the industry, is super important. And as simple as that sounds, a lot of people don't. They go back. They who built our last fire station? Oh, 123 did it. They're on Main Street, and they call them up and they're like, hey, we want to build a training facility. Do you guys do that? And of course the answer is yes. And then they hang up the phone, and then that person then starts dialing around or Google searching, how do you build a training facility?
Yep.
As opposed to now with the internet and the resources that are available. My hope is that everybody in the fire service, whether they're researching container systems, brick and mortar, steel facilities, they're doing their due diligence and they're utilizing the professional resources like our team that's out there. We've got a retired chief on staff to, volunteer firefighters that are engineers now. Right. So, and everything in between. So it's, there's definitely a lot of industry knowledge and a lot of know-how with regards to getting funds, going even through your own public entities, your own what do you call it? Public resources, like to do referendums and stuff. We can help with all that.
Well, and listen, I made this joke before, but I mean, you got to have, if you're doing anything with municipal fire departments, contract fire departments, it doesn't matter. You got to have a chief on staff so that they can speak chiefenese to the other chiefs, because I am not that guy. Like, you put me in front of a chief and I'll make my point, but it's not going to be pretty and polished. It's going to be pretty like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what we're doing. And so like even the Valor Fire Training Cadre, we have 2 chief officers that are part of our cadre for that purpose, so that when I need to go talk to a chief to pitch an idea or pitch a class, I'm like, hey, so-and-so, I need you to go do this. And they're like, well, hey, I mean, you're free. Can't you do it? And I'm like, I don't speak Chiefanese. It's all yours. And they're like, okay.
Chiefanese, that's great.
I'm telling you, man. And again, you know, like we make a joke about it, but when you're talking about talking to politicians, chiefs, you know, the back end firefighters like myself, or the company officers like myself, we look at training towers and what we want vastly different than what chiefs or administrators or politicians expect.
Yep.
And so it's great to have that person on staff who can kind of help with that stuff. So how can people get a hold of you? I know there's the website.
Yes. Yep. Fire Facilities Inc. is typically the best place to start. The jump on the website, and you can actually peruse and get everybody's contact information off of the website. We're up in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. Certainly we have a phone number. And what's horrible is I haven't memorized our phone number. Which is
we're going to add it in the comment. We're going to add it in the comment description.
I'm going to have to. Yeah, if you don't, we'll have to do that. It's 1-800, and then we'll edit.
Right. Yes. Yes.
But what's funny about that, I don't even know my own daughter's phone number, which is kind of crazy, right? I have to always look it up.
That's the way of the world now, man.
Know.
Everybody.
Yeah. But firefacilities.com is the website. So going to that website, that is absolutely a wonderful launching point for any project that anybody's considering, whether you want to research grants to structures, to mobile units, to the most sprawling campuses out there. It's all there at your fingertips. And I highly suggest calling around to other departments too. If you do land on a fire facilities as an option or a consideration, and then something else, call customers that have those buildings. You talk to them, see how they've held up, see how they've done, see what kind of customer service they have, see how responsive they've been, and ultimately, have they done the job of staying in service to make sure anytime you have training available, you get to do it. And that's, I mean, because adapting training in the fire service is a challenge in itself. Sometimes, most of the time, companies have to go out of service for a certain amount of time while a company can train. And then if it gets busy, sometimes they have to stop. So if you don't have an at-home structure that you can train in, it definitely becomes a big time challenge to fit the absolutely necessary training that has to go into being a professional firefighter or volunteer, because it's a dangerous environment.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And whether you have a 1-story modular home size training tower, or an 8-story 100-foot by 100-foot tower, the ability to be able to train is better than not having the ability at all. Yeah. And so prices vary differently depending on material costs and what kind of customization you want. Just because I've been a part of some of those projects, but the intent that we always had was something is better than nothing. And so we'll get what we can get now. And then obviously with your guys' tower, it's very cool because you can always add on to it. And so as things progress, you have those options. So I did want to thank you for a couple things. First off, I want to thank you for being you, because you are by far like one of the coolest presidents of any company that I've actually gotten to sit down and talk with. And
geez.
It, again, it was, I still go back to that FDIC thing where I walked away, and, it just, we had that bond really quickly. And I figured out obviously afterwards that you had been in the fire service. And so it made sense. But I also want to thank Fire Facilities, because as Valor Fire Training has moved on in this venture of the training world, I found it to be very enlightening to build those relationships with companies. And so the one thing that I really, really loved about working with you guys is that you guys have an interest in making the fire service better, and we have an interest in making the fire service better. And so whenever you have two companies that have the best interest of the citizens and the firefighters who are protecting them in mind, that's the type of business that I want to work with. And so it's been really, really nice to be able to sit there and talk with you about things and bounce ideas. And every time it's not, well, we can't do that because it's going to cost too much, or we can't do that. We can't implement this type of innovation because it's cost prohibitive. There are times where I've seen you guys do some things through social media as far as the design, where that's what the customer wanted. It was very unique to them. And even though it wasn't necessarily going to benefit the whole fire service, they walked away with a tower that has exactly what they need. And
Yep.
that's what I thought was the coolest part, was that you guys were able to modify it so that they can get the best training to protect their citizens in their unique situation. Whereas other people will sit there and go, well, we really can't do that because our engineers don't do that.
Right.
So I wanted to thank you for that. And then lastly, the partnership between us, has been awesome. And you guys had reached out to us about the hot seat episodes. I know I just recently heard, I don't know if we're supposed to talk about this.
Yeah.
I heard a rumor that you're going to do the hot seat at FDIC.
Yeah, I'm down, man. I've got a pepper problem.
You are so going to regret this.
Yeah.
Like you're
Yeah.
I don't think you really know exactly what's about to happen, but
Yeah.
but no,
I saw some of the aftermath last year between you and Barnes, and oh my God. Yeah, it's and the year before I actually watched too.
Yep. It was and last year you guys got me to do it twice. And I was like, so I did one for you, I did one with you, and then I did one with a couple other guys up in the podcast booth up at FDIC. And it was, once was bad, twice I don't know why I did that. But no, I
problem too.
I do. I really do. And it's funny because I don't eat hot peppery stuff.
Yeah.
When I'm just sitting at home, I'm not like, oh, I'm going to go lather my eggs in hot sauce. I never do that. But then when we get on the show, it's like, it just happens. I don't know. It's weird.
I'm in.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. I love it. I'm so excited for this. But no, I wanted to thank you guys for having faith in us, and allowing us to be a part of the fire facilities family. And it really does, when I say that, it's kind of, for some people it's tongue in cheek. But these are the lifelong relationships that I've always wanted to build with Valor. And so now that we're at that point, it's been awesome to be able to do that with you guys. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We're in it for the same reasons, man. It's just from two different aspects, right? It's absolutely perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you listening and watching, whether you're on the podcast or the YouTube channel, hit up Fire Facilities Inc. They definitely have one of the best games in town as far as not just the fire service buildings, but also I know that there's a lot of fire service people that do tactical stuff or are in the military. And so this gives you the option to have a multi-purpose building that can suit all your needs. So thanks again, Aaron, for being on. I really appreciate it. Until we talk again, take care, be safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you, Dave. Thank you, sir.